Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Srimad Bhagavatam Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna and welcome to all the devotees online. Thank you very much for your presence and association. As we continue associating with Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, Chapter 3, verses 20 to 25, we will be completing this chapter today, Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Spa Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Tamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vaireka Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokai Triprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavato Prabhu Kalidwando Didaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, O most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O you unreached with the jewels of all spiritual philosophical conclusions, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O light breath of the Vaishnava devotees, O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna who has returned amongst us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsha Sharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, offer respectful obeisance to you. By reading you one attains transcendental bliss. For your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madekabandhu Mad Sangim Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Man Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namastute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Asadu sadhu tadahi nattini chochataraka hanamun chakada chinmam premna ritkatyospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O give us saintliness to run saintly, O uplift to the very fallen. Please do not ever leave me. Please become manifest, Mahatma Throat, accompany pure love of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvayaditaratas Charte Swabhigna Swarat Tene Brahma Hidayati Kavaye Muyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Varimritam Yatha Vinimayo Yatrati Sargom Risha Damna Swena Sada Nirasta Kwakam Satyam Param Dhimaihi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primal cause of all causes of creation, sustenance, and destructions of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by illusory representation of water seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes by him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by illusory representation of what is seen in fire, land seen on water. Only because of him did the material universe is temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in transcendental abode, which is forever free from illusory representation of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Prayano Paisha Sabya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagyu Padrata. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, many but short lies, they are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all always disturbed. Narayan Namaskritya Narachevam Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisance to the personality of God at Narayan, unto Narandarai Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Sabai pum soparo dharmo yato bhakti radokshaja ahaitukya pratyata ayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanities, that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayarchu Savai Ragyam Jnanam Chayat Ahitukam. By rendering devotional service under the personality of God as Shri Krishna, one immediately acquires causes, knowledge, and detachment from the world. Vedanti tat pravidas tattvam yaj gnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Shru Shru Shoshadranasya Vasudeva Katarchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those devotees completely free from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Shranvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vedyantastoya Badrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtues when properly heard and chanted. Nastaprashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Neshtiki. By regular attendance in the class in the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service under the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Abhyam Swadharmam Pari Nishtaya Janmalabha Para Pumsam Antenara Yanasmriti. The highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duties, to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaridi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. A person who has broad intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing Srimad Bhagavatam based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Let us cover some feedback. Anyone has any feedback from last week's session, Canto 2, Chapter 3, verses 13 to 19. You are most welcome to also unmute if you feel like sharing verbally, or you can type in the chat. So I'll just give a minute for you to type while I just attend to something quickly. Right, when you are typing, let me cover a statement from Srila Prabhupada that we covered last week. This verse indirectly confirms the greater importance of utilizing the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by acceleration of devotional service. Time and tide wait for no man. So the time indicated by the sunrise and the sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. Even a fraction of duration of life wasted cannot be compensated by any amount of gold. Human life is awarded to a living entity, Jiva, simply so that he can realize his spiritual identity and his permanent source of happiness. So the section we covered last week was very cutting discussing the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses that waste time in material pursuits, in illusory sense gratification, in all mundane activities, and not using human form of life for what it is designed for. Even though human form is a deviation from our surrendering to Krishna, we did not want to serve the Lord, or we don't want to serve the Lord, we're envious of the Lord. So we are here in the material world given a human form of life. But the human form, like all other forms, are prison suits, punishment for our deviation. Still, the human form is glorious among all prison suits, because it is only in this prison suit that we have the opportunity to stop our imprisonment. It is in this prison suit that we are able to realize our mistake, realize our spiritual identity, and most important of all, our permanent source of happiness. Because everyone in this material world, every living entity in this material world, from Lord Brahma right down to the Indra Gopa Jam, every living entity is seeking for pleasure, happiness, joy. But you're not going to find it in the material world. So the human form is given by the Supreme Lord in such an amazing way that it allows one to perform due purpose or due function. It has a due function. One is it's a entrapment, it's the prison suit, it's punishment. At the same time, it also allows one an opportunity to free one from the imprisonment. So a very interesting gift, very rare gift that Krishna gives to the living entities. Unfortunately, most people do not realize this. So these verses from the Bhagavatam was making very clear that the sun rises, sun sets, and time and tide waits for no man. So time is going, time is ticking. And therefore, time that's not used in Krishna consciousness is simply wasted time. So these verses were very, very strongly directing and encouraging us to use our time valuably in the service of the Supreme Lord. Sharina says, Haribo, please accept my humble obeisance and appreciation. The human form of life is meant to establish one's relation with Krishna. This may seem simple. It actually requires meticulous, conscious effort and intent in every aspect of day-to-day life. Yes. Now, your feedback and your point is very, very important and very pertinent, that it is not a simple aspect of, yes, I know I'm a devotee of Krishna and I'm going to be a devotee. No, it definitely requires effort, as you mentioned. But the details and the effort cannot be there if the goal is not completely solidified. If you're not convinced that that's the direction, that's the goal, then all the other details will be very difficult. But if one is convinced that this is the goal, and that is also what the Bhagavatam is trying to encourage and emphasize. It's trying to ingrain this in stone. Who are you and what's your goal? Once you are convinced of that, then the obstacles may be there, no problem. Challenges may be there, no problem. And then the details that you need to follow, you will want to follow the details. You would want to be meticulous. You would want to put the effort because you understand the goal. You are convinced of the goal. You have firm faith in the goal. So we need to convince ourselves that yes, this is the direction of my existence. Not just this life, not just this year, not just this month, not just this minute, but my existence, my whole existence is meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in today's verses, Srila Prabhupada, the Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada is going to give us very, very detailed. You mentioned meticulous. In today's purports, we're going to cover such meticulous, such detail, such clarity of what we should be doing if we are convinced that we are eternal servants of Krishna. If we are convinced that we belong to Krishna, if we are convinced that this body, mind, words, everything belongs to Krishna, it's Krishna's energies, then what will reflect that? What will show that I'm convinced of that? The example is given that you tell a child to not cross the road because it's dangerous. There are vehicles moving. Now the child may know that, but may not realize the danger. But if the child is walking and there's a vehicle that's coming and a close encounter of that child in the vehicle that just avoided an accident. So the child was walking, all of a sudden the child noticed, and out of fear and shock, the child moved off the road. At that instant, the child now realized, be careful, the road is dangerous. Srila Prabhupada he noticed his young son would try to go into the fan and put his finger in the fan. And Prabhupada said, no, don't do that, you get hurt. So he knows, the child knows that, but the child's not convinced of that. So then Prabhupada brought the speed of the fan down and then put the child's finger, intentionally put the child's finger into the fan. And ouch! And then Prabhupada said, now put the finger. No. So now the child's got knowledge and realized knowledge. Vigyan and Gyan and Vigyan. So we need to be convinced that yes, my life is to be Krishna conscious. Then we will be very happy and we'll joyfully embrace this path of Krishna consciousness, which is not simple, or you would say not easy, because it means addressing our baggage. It means addressing our narratives. It means addressing our monkey mind. It means addressing the challenges that face us. But if we are convinced, then that's half the battle won. And Srila Prabhupada in his purports, he does this. He gives such powerful statements, knowledge to convince us of the fact of who we are. Madhacharya Siddhi says, whatever is connected to Krishna, we can associate with because it is transcendental. Yes. And this is the vision of a pure devotee. The pure devotee does not see anything separate from Krishna because he's in love with Krishna and he knows in truth that Krishna owns everything. So he's able to connect everything in loving service to Krishna. He's able to see everything with that vision, and he's able to connect and use everything in that vision. And in that vision, there is absolutely no form of exploitation. It is not that he sees the energy and he thinks, how can I enjoy? This is the defect of material consciousness. This is the challenge we're trying to overcome, because we see, how can I enjoy? And this tendency is also there. It's ingrained. It's ingrained in our being. So when we come into spiritual arena, we come with that same mentality. How can I enjoy? And if I can't enjoy, I get upset. At least, even if I come with that mentality in spiritual circles, I'm in the right place to become purified. But a pure devotee, he has absolutely zero tinge to exploit, because he's seeing everything in a transcendental relationship with Krishna. Bafana Prabhu says, 24 forms of localized personality of God that are worshipped in different parts of the planet system, and each system, there's an incarnation of the Lord having different forms of the Lord, and each and every one of them has a particular planet in the spiritual sky, and of which this material sky is only a fragmental shoot. Fascinating details of the actual nitty-gritty of the cosmic content and system. Yes, Krishna's created. In fact, Krishna's created so much detail that we cannot comprehend the level of complexity, the level of detail, the level of interdependence, the variety on different dimensions, on different levels, both internal and external, micro and macro, in terms of Krishna's creation. It is mind-boggling. Just like many scholars, they make the point that the more you know about Krishna, the more you realize how little you know about Krishna. The more we study and read Srila Prabhupada's books, the more we realize how little we know. Just when you think, oh, yeah, I know it all, and now you read and say, oh, yeah, wow, I didn't know that. Consider our Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. So much content, so much wisdom. In the higher planets, there are larger volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1 million verses. So we just got 18,000 verses. Then there's 1 million verses. In other universes, there's larger Bhagavatams. So consider the details that is there in all these scriptures. And again, we will never come to the end of the details. But at least the principles that all these details direct us to, that we should imbibe. We may not know all the details, which is okay. But at least in the principles, we should definitely imbibe. Sukadeva Goswami says, we must be eager to hear about Krishna. And more eager we are, Krishna notices when the devotees come together, they talk about Krishna, we must use everything in the service of Krishna. Yes. So this eagerness to hear. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, Tat Shrunu, just hear now. And then Arjuna, he asks Krishna, I'm eager, please tell me more. Same thing in the Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit is eager, please tell me more. So we want to be eager. We want to, it's a healthy sign. And it's a natural sign. You with your lover, you with someone that you love, naturally you want to hear more and more and more. For example, if we associating with a Prabhupada disciple who loves to speak about Prabhupada and give pastimes of Prabhupada, and because we love Srila Prabhupada, because we have a relation with Srila Prabhupada, we are dear to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is dear to us, we eager to hear. We want to hear no more and more pastimes. You never get tired of hearing the memories of Srila Prabhupada's disciples sharing their pastimes with Srila Prabhupada, an experience with Prabhupada. We never tire. That means it's a healthy sign. And again, somebody may come to spiritual life and that eagerness won't be there. But by constantly associating with devotees, constantly trying to apply the process, chanting Hare Krishna, practicing, slowly this eagerness will come more and more and more. I was hearing one devotee was sharing just a week before Gaura Maharaj left this world. Then on Nityananda Triyodasi, he was, they were celebrating. And for 6 hours, Gaura Maharaj sang bhajans, glorifying Lord Nityananda. In jubilation, in ecstasy, so much eagerness, getting everyone to chant on top of their voice. Maharaj was dynamic on this, animated on the Vyasasan. So you can only go on chanting bhajans one after another, enthusiastically, joyfully, animatedly, Krishna consciously, if you are eager and Krishna conscious. If you have a taste, if you have a higher taste, param drishtva nivartate. Otherwise, he's going another bhajan, or another bhajan, oh boy, another bhajan. Like, when he's going to stop? I mean, it's like, can we send him a signal? His Holiness Krishna's Maharaj, they would tell him to give class, and he would go on and on and on, and they would send a note. Maharaj would ignore the note, and he would go on. Why? Because there's a taste. They're attached. This is one of the transcendental obstacles. Cannot stop talking. You're so eager to hear and chant about Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is Madhuram. Krishna is sweet in every way. Krishna attracts Karshani. He attracts the heart of the souls. So we are striving to become spiritually healthy. And these verses and purports that we are covering in this chapter is called Change of Heart. So what directs, or what signals, what signs are there that shows there's a change of heart? So eagerness to hear, molding our life in a Krishna conscious way, it shows a change of heart. Mother Les says, Hare Krishna Prabhu. A pure devotee loves Krishna, and this is why they are eager to act without hesitation to please Krishna. When we don't have much love, then we cannot truly love anything, not even ourselves, because Krishna is like the root of a tree, source of love, and if the root is fed, every part of the tree is nourished. In the same way, we can only truly love when we love Krishna. We must always love, think, talk about Krishna, and never forget him. Yes. Soak yourself in Krishna-related activities. And when you soak yourself in Krishna-related activities, try to keep it Krishna-related. Because within this material world, we have the opportunity, we have the facility, we have the good fortune of being Krishna conscious. But you're not alone. Maya is there. The opposing elements are there. So we always want to shield ourselves from the negative side, offensive mentality, offending. There's nama parad, dhamma parad, seva parad, different obstacles that are there. Jiva aparad. So all the aparads are there. We want to try to avoid the aparads and try to focus on the positive aspect of Krishna consciousness. That's why the do's and don'ts are there. Sri Mahaprabhu, he gave so much mercy, benedicted living entities in this world. But one thing Sri Mahaprabhu didn't like is when devotees would commit offenses. So on the one hand, we have the good fortune of engaging in Krishna consciousness. On the other hand, we have to be cautious, careful, and try to avoid the negative. Thank you very much for everyone's feedback. So today we're going to complete 20 to 25 limbed in 2024, and the last verse is there, basically concluding. So the limb by limb description of persons who are averse to Harikatha. So now these last verses are going to describe if you're not Krishna conscious in terms of your bodily features and parts, the bodily parts that you have been given, there's a comparison that we're going to cover, Bhagavatam is going to give. At the same time, it's giving the instructions to us of what we should be doing to change our heart. Bile Bato Kru Krama Bhaktoru Krama Vikrayamam Ye Na Shrinvata Karna Pute Narasya Jiva Sati Dardurikshet Sutta Nacho Pagatya tu Nacho Pagayatu Rugaya Gata. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead and has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of a snake and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. So we have a tongue, and the tongue, Prabhupada would often in a lecture says, has two purposes, vibrating and tasting. So in this verse, if you are not using your tongue to glorify the Supreme Lord, then that tongue is like the tongue of a frog. And your ears, if you're not using your ears to hear the glories, the songs sung by the Supreme Lord, songs about the Supreme Lord, then your ears are like that of the holes of a snake. So Prabhupada, he gives some lengthy purports to these verses. Devotional service to the Lord is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. So we should try and engage all the limbs of our body in Krishna service. By doing that, we purify all the limbs, and it is more effective in purifying the heart. It is the transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, a devotee is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord. So this potency, devotional service, is a transcendental dynamic force. And we can use all our limbs in this dynamic force of service to the Supreme Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord. And one can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed only in sense gratification. So senses everyone has. But you can have impure senses or materialistic senses, and you can have pure senses or spiritual senses. You cannot have in between. So at every moment, you're either using your senses materially or spiritually. If you use it materially, it's binding. If you use it spiritually, it's liberating. Our goal is to completely use all our senses in the service of Krishna. So moment by moment, if I try to employ all my senses in the service of Krishna, that means moment by moment, I'm living spiritually. Then minute by minute, I'm living spiritually. Hour by hour, I'm living spiritually. Day by day, I'm living spiritually. Year by year, I'm living spiritually. Life by life, I'm living spiritually. So we simply have to live in the moment in a Krishna conscious way. In this way, if we try to keep our moments day by day Krishna conscious, we are perfectly situated, purely situated. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification, but in the service of the Lord in total, complete. No mixing, no dilution, 100%. So note here, when Prabhupada is talking about engagement, it's engagement with proper motive. That's the nature of pure devotional service. Kamsa was 24 hours Krishna conscious, but not favorable. He was conscious of Krishna, but with animosity. He wanted to kill Krishna. It's ascribed in Krishna book. When Kamsa, he was so infatuated with Krishna as an enemy that he would see Krishna in the water, in the food, everywhere. He would hear Krishna, he would see Krishna. It's like possessed with Krishna. So he's Krishna conscious, but not in pure devotional service. Because pure devotional service means anukulya Krishna anushilanam. It has to be favorable for the pleasure of Krishna. So your motive needs to be free from sense gratification, and it needs to be pleasing to Krishna. The Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service to the Lord is the completely purified use of the senses, as described in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses. And thus, there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. So, there is no question of voidism, making everything zero, which is what the impersonals or the Mayavadis want to do. No, in Krishna consciousness, there is indulgence of the senses. We are engaging the senses. We are indulging the senses with Krishna, not sense gratification, or no sense gratification, zero, sunya. The senses are by nature always demanding. The eyes want to see beautiful things, the ears want to hear beautiful things, the nose want to smell beautiful things, the tongue wants to taste beautiful things and speak beautiful things, and the sense of touch wants to touch beautiful things. This is the nature. Why? Because the soul is pleasure seeking, and that pleasure seeking is reflected through the mind and through the senses to enjoy. So that propensity is natural, it's there. But it needs to be directed to Krishna. And in this way, this is perfect. This is perfect spiritual sense gratification. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electric charge from the master to the disciple, as foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic. And the exchange of views between the master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one should receive the teachings of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses so that one can logically understand the great mission. So it's interesting, Prabhupada's point is that it's not hairy-fairy. Yes, there is mysticism, but it is logical and it involves our senses, which means you yourself can use your intellect, can use your senses and experience Krishna consciousness. It's not like mysticism or you're probably talking about electric charge. I touch you and you get zapped and now you're Krishna conscious. Everyone can apply themselves logically, intellectually, sensually in the service of Krishna. And in this way, one can realize the power, potency, and the great mission of Lord Chaitanya. In the impure state of a living being, the various senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about him from the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly the holes of the ears will be filled with some rubbish. So you only throw rubbish in a trash can. Do not throw rubbish in this trash can. The ears become trash can when you throw rubbish. And if you throw rubbish in your trash can, you become rubbish. If you take your 2 ears and bring it together, it looks like a heart, shape of a heart. So ears look like a heart means direct connection to the heart. Anything that goes in your ears, go to your heart. Prabhupada gives a nice example. If somebody says, how can you say that whatever you say, go to my heart? If somebody tells you you have such a lousy, stupid nose, just your nose is so, your nose is like Pinocchio. So if your nose is like Pinocchio, if somebody says your nose is like Pinocchio, then you get upset. So why do you get upset? I just spoke some words that your nose is like Pinocchio. But because I criticized your nose verbally with words, words are captured by the ear and you felt pain. People say something, you feel hurt. People glorify you, you feel elated. So how come you are feeling elated or upset when you hear words? Because they enter into your heart. Therefore, we do not want rubbish to enter the ears, because if rubbish enter the ears, it will go into your heart, and rubbish entering the heart will transform you into a rubbish bin. And therefore, only rubbish will come out from your senses. You'll speak rubbish. Your relationship with others will be rubbish. People do not understand the power of words. You can do this. This is the famous exercise. Many school children, you can go on YouTube, you can Google the power of words. And many experiments are there on the power of words. They, sometimes in school to teach children about the power of words, they would take 2 sets or 3 sets of plants. They would take some cooked rice. So different, they would use even apples. Like you can cut apples. So you put 3 jars, either with cooked rice or cooked rice with fresh water, apples, or even plants. And you got 3 experimental bottles. And what they do is they put words. So, for example, love, hate, and neutral. And in school, they would do the experiment, and they would get the children every day to come and speak, to the rice or the apple or the plant. So if it's love, you're going to say loving things. I love you. You're such a wonderful plant. You grow so nicely. You're giving us nourishment. Thank you. And for under hate, you would criticize, mock, blaspheme the plant. And neutral, you just don't keep neutral. So in this way, they would do that for 30 days, 60 days. And over time, you will see the plants, the apple, and the rice completely different. Where there is positive love, good words, you'll see there is more health of the plants, of the apple, whereas if you see with negative words, then you'll find that the apple is black, the rice is more moldy, the plant's dying. So in this way, and this was just through the power of words. So therefore, we should be very attentive and conscientious about the words that we speak, words that we hear. The whole material world, we heard in the first canto. Srila Prabhupada says, everyone is asking, everyone is speaking, everyone is asking questions. The birds are speaking, where is food, where is food? So you see the communication throughout the planet, throughout life, existence, is through sound. So therefore, the sound that we hear, we should be very, very careful, because it can be glorious or it can be rubbish. And Prabhupada concludes, says, therefore the messages of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly. That is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. So this is one of our important missions, important service, is to try to propagate the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Because people do not have an alternative to sound. They don't have an alternative to rubbish. Therefore, they keep delving in rubbish. Prabhupada has given us the alternative, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense. And people are receiving them with no sense. So nonsense means no sense. And no sense is nonsense, is rubbish. There are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world. And people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord. And the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak, with the result that they invite the snake to eat them. Human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word ashati used in this verse is also significant. Ashati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue which is given to human being for chanting the Vedic hymns will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. Text 31. So our tongue always vibrating Krishna and prasadam, tasting prasad. Our ears always hearing about Krishna. Bara parampata kiricha justam apyutamangam nanana namem mukundam swa vaikarono kurute saparyam hare lasatkanchana kankanova. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, Hari. So we covered the tongue, we covered the ears, now the head and the hands. As stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinction between a devotee and non-devotees. The second class devotee are therefore meant for preaching work. And as referred in the previous verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. We see Prabhupada, he was a Paramhamsa, coming to the second level, Madhyam, to preach, and very boldly, very loudly. It's amazing if you see Prabhupada going to the West, he's going to the root, in the midst of the Western civilization that have absolutely zero clue of Krishna consciousness. And yet Prabhupada, you'll see he's preaching so boldly with Sanskrit verses. Prabhupada didn't go to the West. If you see all the lectures right from the beginning, Prabhupada didn't think, oh yeah, they're Westerners. What they going to know about Sanskrit and verses? I'll just give them English. No, you see Prabhupada quoting left, right, and center the verses, the Sanskrit, giving the pure Krishna consciousness as it is. Why? Because Prabhupada also realizes that there's potency in the verses. There's potency. Every verse, the Bhagavatam, every verse, every word is Krishna. So that has potency. Yes, we may not understand. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, cannot chant verses nicely. But by associating with the verses, we're associating with Krishna. So Prabhupada is making very clear, boldly, loudly preaching the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of the third class devotees and non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also come down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even when he may not, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors, and men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. So big, small, rich, poor, educated, not educated, everyone must bow down before the deities. Bow down, mister. So, this is how Srila Prabhupada trained everyone. When we go to the temple, we bow down. This is using the head properly, nicely. The Lord in the temple is the worshipable form, is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. For the Lord is his archer incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. We covered this point previously. Srila Prabhupada, Sukadeva Goswami talked about deity worship. And Prabhupada here again emphasizing the importance of the deities, their archer incarnation. So when we invite the Lord, we have to treat the Lord non-different from the Lord. We cannot treat the Lord like stone. We cannot treat the Lord like he is our play toy. He's there for our sense gratification. No. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's appearing in the form of stone, form of wood, so that we can offer our service. So when we're serving the Lord, we should always be attentive that this is Krishna, non-different. And therefore, because this is the archer incarnation, it is a bona fide appearance of the Lord, then there are certain rules and regulations that govern our service to the Lord. We can just not speculate how we can serve the Lord. Therefore, in Nectar Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami discusses the first 5 aspects of rendering service to the Supreme Lord. They're all related to Guru Padashraya, to the spiritual master. Why? Because we need to serve the deities, the Acha Vigraha, following the instructions of a bona fide teacher, bona fide spiritual master. We cannot just concoct the worship of the deity. Like there's an example of someone who takes Laddu Gopal and they throw Laddu Gopal to one another like he's a ball. And they think this is good for Laddu Gopal. So nice, just see, oh yeah, catch, yes, Laddu Gopal, catch. No, that is not the proper system of worship. System of worship, especially for the Acha Vigraha, needs to be followed nicely. Otherwise, one will commit offenses, seva aparat. So, wonderful opportunity that we can have deities to serve, but at the same time, we should be careful that the deities are not there for your sense gratification. The deities are not there again, like the material energy. People abuse the energies for sense gratification. So now one can also have a deity for sense gratification. The deity is not there for sense gratification. The deity is there for your purification, for you to serve the deity with love, with devotion. And Prabhupada taught us, especially in the beginning, in neophyte state, we should see the deity in the form of Lakshmi Narayan. We should worship the deity in the form of Lakshmi Narayan. That means with awe and reverence, not familiarity. Not like, yeah, Krishna is my buddy, man. He's on the altar. I can just walk on the altar, with ordinary clothes. I can go on with my shoes. I can, have no tilak. I can just walk on and, hug the Lord. Like, how's it, buddy? No, it doesn't work like that. We will not make advancement with that type of consciousness. So we should be very careful. By the hearing process, so I'll just read the sentence. The Lord in the temple is worshipable. In the worshipable form is never to be considered made of stone or wood. For the Lord is his Acha incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. So if we can worship, if we can establish, and Prabhupada's standard of deity worship is super excellent, super excellent. 6 offerings, 6 artis, dressing, morning, dressing, evening, day outfit, night outfit. Such a very high standard, fresh flower garlands. So by performing this type of service, then the presence of the Lord becomes more prominent. Krishna becomes more pleased, therefore more auspicious for the fallen souls. There's the history of the Jagannath deities. Because Lord Jagannath, 64 preparations, you have to cook every day. Just contemplate. If you had to cook 64 preparations every single day for your deities. Not a simple task at all. Not a simple task at all. And yeah, you may, maybe a few devotees, but you can't say, well, Krishna fasting today, isn't it? You had a whole week. Today you fast. If you have too much, not good. Twice a month, Ekadasi comes, so Krishna, you fast also. No, 7 days a week, every single day, one has to cook. So one time they were thinking like this, it's not a burden, but Krishna, he doesn't need our cooking. He's getting served by thousands and millions of Lakshmis, goddesses of fortunes in the spiritual world. It's not like he's starving. So we can reduce. So they reduced the offering, they reduced the arati. And then after some time, they thought, maybe, Krishna is not, doesn't require this, it's not like he's in need of our services. We can just have some basic things. This way they reduce more and more. And eventually Krishna decided, okay, it's a clear sign. You don't want me. So the earth opened and Krishna, the deity submerged and unmanifested. So like that, the deities can unmanifest. The temple can burn down. Deities can be stolen. They can be submerged underground. So if we offer our service lovingly, devotionally, for the pleasure of Krishna, considering Krishna to be a person, then Krishna is very happy to stay. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. So by the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord is made possible. So this is how we're able to slowly realize that that is Krishna, non-different, by the hearing process. So if we do not sufficiently hear, we will not be able to get sufficient realization that the deities are non-different like Krishna. So that's why hearing about Krishna consciousness is a must for pujaris. It's a must for those who are serving the deities. It's a must for all those who are coming in front of the deities so that they can realize this is Krishna. Otherwise, we think Krishna is an order supplier. God, give us our day, this daily bread. Give us our daily bread. Pure devotion is when you can give bread to Krishna. Mother Yashoda Krishna is going to Mother Yashoda, Maya, where's my bread? Where's my roti? Where's my sabji? So Mother Yashoda is feeding Krishna. This is love. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. It's an essential ingredient. You cannot take it out. You cannot leave it. Therefore, Prabhupada arranged our programs are really all about hearing. We invite people to come and hear. Our festivals are about hearing. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship without any knowledge of the signs, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. So yes, pride, arrogance, ignorance, not hearing about Krishna. This is basically mean a burden, a head that's a burden that just pushes you down into the material ocean. So let us use our head in serving the deities of the Lord. A foolish, puffed up man defies the signs of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nations by the weight of his material acquisitions. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. Common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Pratap, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities, yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. So some service, engage in some service to the Lord. Go to the temple. We are blessed here, Gauteng, to have Shishinitai Gorhari. We should make a point of going, visiting them, doing some service, taking some gift to them, develop a relationship with the Lord, bowing down before them, cleansing the temple, some service. And this way, there's a relationship that will build. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Pratap subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even the great Patan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Pratap. And at last, Maharaj Pratap was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. So whether you are wealthy, a very powerful man, or you're an insignificant soul, everyone should use their hands, their head, in service of the Lord. Barhayitete nayane narayan naranam lingani vishno na nirikshato pado nrinamto drumajanma bajo kshetrani nanu vrajato hareyo. The eyes which do not look at the symbolic representation of the personality of Vishnu, his form, name, qualities, etc., are like those printed on the plumes of a peacock. And the legs which do not move to the holy places where the Lord is remembered are considered to be like tree trunks. So now the eyes and the legs. The eyes are meant to see the beautiful form of Krishna. And the legs are meant to go to holy places. especially for the householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. So all of us are householders. So deity worship is strongly recommended. If you're staying as a householder closer to the temple, then we should try to render service to the presiding deities. That's first class. If you can't do that, then you can have your own deities. And your own deities are also an extension of the presiding deities. They're not separate. So that way, when you're serving your deities, you're actually serving the presiding deities. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu, forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayana, Sita Rama especially, or any other form of the Lord, like Nishinga, Vara, Gaunitai, Matsya, Kurma, Shalagram, Shila, many other forms of Vishnu, like Trivikram, Keshava, Achyuta, Vasudeva, Narayan, Damodar, as they are recommended in the Vaishnava Tantras or Puranas. And one should worship the deity with one's family, following the directions and regulations of the Archana Vidi. So every householder, this is the standard. Now, if this is done, then your life is regulated and forced around the deities. Now you can't say, okay, holiday, break. No. So this is why deity worship is so powerful, because firstly, it regulates one, keeps one fully engaged, keeps one Krishna conscious. And in this way, you use your time around the deities. The family time is around the deities, service to the deity. And this is very, very purifying, very beneficial for our bhakti. But it needs to be done according to the Archana Vidi, according to the regulations, not just whimsical, not just like a fad, like a fashion. No, it needs to be taken seriously. There was one devotee in Lens. We were going door to door, Sankirtan. So we knocked on the door and devotee opens, Hare Krishna. Oh, you know about Krishna? Oh, yes, Hare Krishna, please come. And then she showed us a temple. It was installed deities of Gonitai, like life size, like our Lordship's Shishinitai Gauri. And every day she was cooking. She basically had installed deities in the house. So the same standard of worship that we offer to the Shishinitai Gauri, she was doing at home. Garlands, outfit, offering. Her life was basically the deities. So this is how the family can mold their lives around the Supreme Lord. Any member of the family who is above 12 years of age should be initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, and all the members of the household should be engaged in daily service of the Lord, beginning from morning, 4 a.m. till 10 p.m. by performing Mangalarti, Nirjana, Archana, Puja, Kirtan, Shringara, Bhoga, Vaikali, Sandhyarti, Pata, Bhoga at night, Sandhyarti, etc. Full-time service. So we should aspire for this. And again, it starts off with, every journey starts off with a single step. So if one's not doing this, then one can get a picture and do, some service to the picture. Or, as we said, one can get some service in relation to the local deities. If it's once a week, once a month, start one step. If you go to any temple and you ask them, Prabhu, can I do some service for the deities? It may be boga shopping, it may be cleansing, it may be doing some practical service, garland making, serving tulsi. So many services are there. Arranging festivals, so much, so many. There's no shortage of services. And you take that as your service and commit to that. Now, yes, Prabhupada is saying here, install the deities. That means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, practically a lifetime of service. But at least start. And when you start that little service, don't think that that's the end. That's just the start. This is the end, full time, 100%, dedicated. And if we do not perfect our life and go back to the spiritual world to engage in full-time dedicated service, and if we have to come back to this material world, then at least we would have started in this life, and we will then continue our journey, and we'll get more opportunity to serve. A bona fide spiritual master will gradually help the householders to purify their very existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. The internet is unstable. If I cut out, please let me know. So here Prabhupada is now giving the benefit. It will purify our existence and make rapid progress in spiritual knowledge. So very, very beneficial. Very beneficial. I was fortunate that when I finished my university, I joined full-time. So at least for 12 years, 10 to 12 years, I had the opportunity to serve Shishini Tagore full-time. And then when we moved out, we continued serving. So in this way, that training created the foundation, which is very, very beneficial. So we should, if we have time, we should try to engage more of our time, because that will always lay the foundation, which will then allow us to make rapid progress. Simple theoretical book knowledge is not sufficient for a neophyte devotee. Book knowledge is theoretical, whereas the Archana process is practical. Spiritual knowledge must be developed by a combination of theoretical and practical knowledge. That is the guaranteed way for attainment of spiritual perfection. The training or devotional service for a neophyte devotee completely depends on the expert spiritual master who knows how to lead his disciple to make gradual progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. One should not become a pseudo spiritual master as a matter of business to meet one's family expenditures. One must be an expert spiritual master to deliver the disciple from the clutches of impending death. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of a spiritual master, and one of the verses in that description reads, engagement in such worship of the deity under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master will gradually help the householders. Okay, it's a duplication. So Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has defined the bona fide qualities of a bona fide qualities of spiritual master. One of the verses is described. Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanmandira Marjanado Tasya Bhaktams Chaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Shri Vigra is the archer or suitable worshipful form of the Lord, and the disciple should be engaged in worshipping the deity regularly by Shringar, proper decoration and dressing, and as also by Mandira Marjana, the matter of cleansing the temple. The spiritual master teaches the neophyte devotee all these kindly and personally to help him gradually in the realization of the transcendental name, quality, form, etc. of the Lord. So by doing Archana, we slowly realize the name, form, qualities of Krishna. Only attention engaged in the service of the Lord, especially in dressing and decorating the temple, accompanied by musical kirtan and spiritual instructions from scriptures, can save the common man from hellish seminar attractions and rubbish sex songs broadcast everywhere by radios. If one is unable to maintain a temple at home, he should go to another's temple where all the above performances are regularly executed. So start somewhere along the line, keep some engagement, and in this way, progress and develop a relationship with Dacha Vigraha. Visiting the temple of a devotee and looking at the profusely decorated forms of the Lord, well dressed in a well decorated, sanctified temple, naturally infuse the mundane mind with spiritual inspiration. So this is the purpose of a temple. Inspiration. It's to inspire people in spiritual life. It's to inspire souls in devotion. So the atmosphere, the deity worship, the prasad, the kirtan, the lectures, the environment, the gardens, the ablution facilities, everything should be nicely facilitated, nicely arranged, so that the souls that place a foot in the temple environment, they become spiritually inspired. People should visit holy places like Vrindavan, where such temples and worship of the deity are specifically maintained. Formerly, all rich men, like kings and rich merchants, constructed such temples under the direction of expert devotees of the Lord, like the 6 Goswamis. And it is a duty of the common man to take advantage of these temples and festivals observed in the holy places of pilgrimage by following the footsteps of the great devotees, Anuvraja. One should not visit all these sanctified pilgrimage places and temples with sightseeing in mind, but one should go to such temples and sanctified places immortalized by transcendental pastimes of the Lord and be guided by proper men who know the signs. This is called Anuvraja. Anu means to follow. It is therefore best to follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master even in visiting temples and holy places of pilgrimage. So we fortunate, Prabhupada's mercy has enabled so many souls to have this opportunity to visit temples, to celebrate festivals, to serve at the temples. These are oases, embassies of the spiritual world. Therefore, we want to try to visit and offer services. And even though the temples may not be, perfectly managed as best as we may want, but still, if you have the proper consciousness, you can enter into any environment with a heightened spiritual consciousness and add to the environment. Add that as a service to the environment by your behavior, by your Krishna conscious mindset, by your Krishna conscious service. So in this way, we can always go to any temple and heighten that spiritual inspiration instead of dampening, instead of criticizing, instead of condemning. One who does not move in that way is as good as a standing tree condemned by the Lord not to move. The moving tendency of the human being is misused by visiting places for sightseeing. The best purpose of such traveling tendencies could be fulfilled by visiting holy places established by great acharyas and thereby not being misled by atheistic propaganda of money-making men who have no knowledge of spiritual matters. So if you don't go to temples, you don't visit temples, you don't go pilgrimage, then next life you get legs of trees. You become a tree. Because you didn't move, you didn't use your trees. You didn't use your legs for the right service. So this way we should engage our legs, engage our hands, engage our eyes. 23. Jivan chavo bhagavata tarangri renum najatu mautyo bila beta yastu Shri Vishnupada padya manujastu lasya swashan chavoyas tunaveda gandham. The person who has not at any time received the dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of the tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. So now your body and your nose, the desire to smell, this is now how you can dovetail. Your body can be purified by the dust of the feet of the pure devotee, and your nose used to smell the aroma of tulsi offered to the Lord. According to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, the breathing dead body is a ghost. When a man dies, he is called dead. But when he again appears in a subtle form, not visible to our present vision, and yet acts, such a dead body is called a ghost. Ghosts are always very bad elements, always creating a fearful situation for others. Similarly, the ghost-like non-devotees who have no respect for the pure devotees, nor for the Vishnu deity in the temples, create a fearful situation for the devotees at all times. The Lord never accepts any offering by such impure ghosts. There is a common saying that one should first love the dog of the beloved before one shows any loving sentiment for the beloved. The stage of pure devotion is attained by sincerely serving a pure devotee of the Lord. The first condition of devotional service to the Lord is therefore to be a servant of a pure devotee. And this condition is fulfilled by the statement, reception of the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee who has also served another pure devotee. That is the way of pure disciplic succession or devotional parampara. So we need to get the blessing, the mercy of the pure devotee in disciplic succession and get the dust from his feet, put it on our head. Getting the dust from the feet, which is very favorable, very anukul for spiritual progress. That is very beneficial, and also it also means, the deeper meaning means to follow the instructions of the pure devotee. Just like meat eating means literally don't eat meat. It's one of the regular principles. But no meat eating, deeper meaning means be very careful what you say, how you deal with others. You should be kind. You should speak kind words. Be merciful, compassionate, kind. So that's a deeper meaning. So like that, take the dust, very, very beneficial, and also follow instructions. Maj Rahuganam inquired from the great saint Jad Bharat as to how he had attained such a liberated stage of the Paramhamsa. And in answer, the great saint replied as follows. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:12. Rahu Ganaita Tapasanayati Nache Jayani Rupanad Grihadva Nachanda Shaneva Jalagni Sure Jalagni Sure Vina Mahatpadarajo Vishekam. O King Rahugana, the perfectional stage of devotional service, or the Paramhamsa stage of life, cannot be attained unless one is blessed by the dust of the feet of great devotees. It is never attained by tapasya austerity, the Vedic worshipping process, acceptance of renounced order of life, the discharge of duties of householder life, the chanting of the Vedic hymns, or performance of penance in the hot sun, within cold water, or before blazing fire. So advancement, real advancement, pure devotion, bhakti, is really achieved by the mercy of a pure devotee. This is why also one of the reasons we honor and celebrate, like yesterday was Advaitacharya's appearance day. So we need to always observe these festivals, because by getting the mercy of great devotees like Advaitacharya, the Panchatattva, our previous acharyas, we can get devotion, we can get mercy. Without the mercy of pure devotees, without the blessings of pure devotees, all our other activities, austerity, tapasya, perfect discharge of duties, chanting Vedic hymns, penances, even renounced order of life, has no value, because those activities cannot revive devotion. Devotion is descending. Mercy is descending. So therefore we need to get the blessings. In other words, Lord Shri Krishna is the property of his pure unconditional devotees. And as such, only the devotees can deliver Krishna to another devotee. Krishna is never obtainable directly. So that's the science, that's the principle. Prabhupada has Krishna in his heart, he can give Krishna. If you don't have Krishna in your heart, you can't give. You can only give what you got. So the pure devotees, they got Krishna in their heart, therefore they can give. That is why we seek the blessings of the pure devotees. Lord Chaitanya therefore designated himself as Gopi Bar Tupada Kamalayor Das Anodas. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 13:18. Or the most obedient servant of the servants of the Lord, who maintains the Gopi damsels and Vrindavan. A pure devotee therefore never approaches the Lord directly, but tries to please the servant of the Lord's servants, and thus the Lord becomes pleased. And only then can the devotee relish the taste of the tulsi leaves stuck to his lotus feet. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord is never to be found by becoming a great scholar of the Vedic literatures, but he is very easily approachable through his pure devotee. In Vrindavan, all the pure devotees pray for the mercy of Srimati Radhavani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srimati Radhavani is the tender-hearted feminine counterpart of the Supreme Whole, resembling the perfectional stage of the worldly feminine nature. So this is the truth, this is the Siddhanta. We want the mercy of the pure devotee. Radhavani is the greatest of devotees. The Panchatattva, they devotees. So we want the mercy. Why? Because by getting their mercy, we get the mercy of Krishna. We cannot approach Krishna directly. Therefore, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was going on Parikram, there was a great Ram Bhakta. And this Ram Bhakta, people, the disciples would go and visit this Ram Bhakta, and he would exhibit such ecstasy and glorify the Lord. So they came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and asked Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, come, Guru Maharaj, please come see this great Ram Bhakta. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, you go and ask the Ram Bhakta. Is his relationship with Lord Ram direct or indirect? Then a message came back. He said his relation with Lord Ram is direct. Because in a material world, to have a direct relation means, more important. I got a direct relationship with the president. I got a direct relationship with the president, with this person, with this famous person. If you say, no, I got a relationship, but it's like, with this person who's connected to this person, who's connected to this person, and this person, and that person is actually connected to the president. Yeah, it's not so good. It's very down the line, too far. But in the spiritual world, you cannot have a direct relationship with Krishna. That direct relationship is already taken. Mother Yashoda is directly with Krishna. You can't be Mother Yashoda. So you can only be the servant of 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 those servants who are directly connected to Krishna. But the principle, the beauty is that the further you are away as a servant, the more Krishna becomes pleased. That's the irony. It seems like the closer you are to Krishna, the more glorious, but the further you are as a servant to these servants, Krishna becomes pleased. And that pleasure of Krishna allows you to advance. Therefore, the mercy of Radharani is available very readily to a sincere devotee. And once she recommends such a devotee, Lord Krishna, the Lord at once accepts the devotee's admittance into his association. The conclusion is therefore that one should be more serious about seeking the mercy of a devotee than that of the Lord directly. And by one's doing so, by the goodwill of the devotee, the natural attraction for the service of the Lord will be revived. So when Srila Bhaktisana Maharaj heard that his relationship is direct, Bhaktisana Maharaj said bogus. Bogus. But if somebody says, I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotee of Krishna, then this is glorious. This is how we can come back into the association of the Lord. Not directly, but via his servants. So therefore, Vaishnav Seva, serving the devotees, is a very, very powerful limb of bhakti. 24. Tad asmasharam hridayam batedam yadgreyamaner harinamadeyai na vikriyeta tatha yada vikaro netre jalam gatra rube shuharsha. Certainly the heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change even when signs of transformation take place, such as tears in the eyes and ecstatic standing of hairs on end. So if one hears the glories of Krishna and does not melt the heart, tears don't come from the eyes. It's a sign. It's a sign of a heart that is steel framed. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, a gradual process of development of devotional service is presented. In the first chapter, the first step in devotional service for God consciousness by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed. For a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in his universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God through the material manifestation of his energy, one is enabled to spiritualize the mind and the senses and gradually concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu, the Supreme, who is present as the supersoul in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely gradual development, worship of superior that may be in the form of fire, electricity, the sun, the mass of living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last the impersonal supersoul, partial representation of Lord Vishnu. They are all nicely described in the second chapter. But in the third chapter, further development is prescribed after one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship or pure devotional service. And the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested here in relation to the change of heart. So gradually, there are gradual processes to purify one gradually. But as we gradually purify, we will come to this stage where the heart is now changed. The heart moves in relation to Krishna. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So it's not just a question of theory. It's a question of really changing our heart, reviving our relationship, a loving relationship. Loving relationship means heart relationship. See, it's not an intellectual relationship. It's not a sentimental relationship. It's not a, you could say not even a sensuous relationship, but it's a heart relationship, a loving relationship. But the heart can only be transformed if all the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord. Mind, body, words, head, eyes, ears, nose, legs, tongue, all engage in the service of the Lord. This then transforms, purifies the heart, gradually purifies the heart, transforms the heart. The more intensely we engage, the quicker the heart becomes transformed. The more intensely we engage and don't mix, don't add rubbish, the quicker we transform our heart. Not like I take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're not going to go anywhere. In fact, you're going back. Even if you take 3 steps forward and 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, and then 2 steps back, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward. If you keep going forward and back, you're not making effective advancement. That's why we need to avoid the don'ts, embrace the don'ts, meaning if it says do not do this, we follow that. And then engage and embrace the do's. So don't take steps backwards and take steps forward. That way you can go more efficiently and effectively forward in spiritual life. So the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual development from the sense of material enjoyment by a false sense of lording it over the world and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service of the Lord. So how do I know I'm going forward? How do I know that my heart is changing? Prabhupada gives a very beautiful parameter. So with progress of devotional service, the reaction of change of heart is exhibited by 2 things. Gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment by a false sense of lording over the material world. So you're becoming detached from sense enjoyment. You can see that you are more detached from exploiting, from sense enjoyment. And remember, the detachment can be, for example, you may be attached to a, let me give an example. Let's say, you love drinking coffee, which is, or like tea, which is an addiction. So you drink 10 cups of coffee, 10 cups of tea a day. Now you're engaging in Krishna consciousness and trying to purify your heart and change your heart. Let's say after a month, you haven't given up tea or coffee, but now you're only drinking 8 cups instead of 10. That is called change of heart. That is called gradual detachment. That means you're in the right direction. You're moving in the right direction. Right? So it's not about complete detachment. It's not about, oh yeah, just see 1 month and I gave up tea and coffee. I'm pure devotee. No. Not going to happen like that. Gradual detachment. So we can see eventually tea and coffee is gone. Now tea and coffee is gone. What's next on the list? So understand what's next on the list and monitor that. So in this way, progressing gradually. So that's the first. Second, an increase in the attitude of loving service to the Lord. You want to serve more and more and more. You love to serve. You're excited to serve. You can't wait to serve. You're greedy for service. You're enthusiastic and determined for the service. So that's increasing. Service doesn't become a burden. So the attitude of rendering service increases. The quality and quantity of service increases. And service with all our senses, as described in these verses, they increase. So that's how you can monitor. So very practical instructions, meticulously given, so we can measure with all our senses how I'm making advancement. Am I using my head, my eyes, my ears, my tongue, my legs, my hands, my sense of touch, smell, taste, all in the service of Krishna? And seeing that, yes, I'm making advancement. Vidhi bhakti, or gradual or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands, the legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus of all activities of the limbs of the body. So yes, all the senses, limbs are covered, but do not forget the mind. The mind must also be engaged. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest a change of heart. It's a science. Therefore, if you truly engage nicely under proper direction, you must experience a change of heart. It has to happen. There's no question, because it's science. If you eat sugar, you will experience sweetness if you're healthy, because it's a science. That's the nature of sugar. That's the taste of sugar. If there's no such change, the heart must be considered steel framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional duties. And if they are properly performed, they will follow the reactional ecstasies with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of hairs on the body. Now, this won't happen overnight, but gradually we will get there. Eventually we will get there. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, love of God. If the reactions does not take place even after continuous hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, it may be considered to be due to offenses only. Therefore, we have to be very careful of different offenses, different aparad. Nama aparad, Dhamma aparad, Seva aparad, Jiva aparad. All these aparads we have to avoid. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. In the beginning the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, if the devotee has not been very careful about avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses at the feet of the holy name, certain the reaction of feelings of separation will not be visible by tears in the eyes and standing of hair on end. So we need to go from offensive chanting to clearing chanting to cleared pure chanting. Therefore, we need to understand, we need to educate ourselves in the process, the obstacles, and then follow the process nicely. And in this way, we will benefit, get the results. The bhava stage is manifested by 8 transcendental symptoms, namely inertness, perspiration, standing of hair on end, failing of the voice, trembling, paleness of the body, tears in the eyes, and finally trance. The nectar devotion, summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu explains those symptoms and vividly describes other transcendental developments, but both in steady and accelerated manifestations. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has very critically discussed all these bhava displays in connection with some unscrupulous neophytes imitating the above symptoms for cheap appreciation. Not only Vishnu Chakravarti, but also Srila Rupa Goswami has treated them very critically. Sometimes all the above 8 symptoms of ecstasy are imitated by mundane devotees, prakritasajas, but the pseudo symptoms are at once detected when one sees pseudo devotees addicted to so many forbidden things. Even though decorated with the signs of a devotee, a person addicted to smoking, drinking, or illegitimate sex with women cannot have all the above mentioned ecstatic symptoms. So if you engage nicely, purely in devotional service, these symptoms will manifest. But these symptoms can be manifested even if somebody is a pseudo-devotee, prakritasaja, because they can be imitated. That is why Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar Devotion gives other symptoms of bhava that cannot be pretended, that cannot be imitated. Like eka kalatvam, using all of one's time in devotional service, not wasting even a moment. So in this way, that symptom cannot be imitated. 24 hours engagement in the service of Krishna. So Prabhupada's making very clear, if one sees somebody with these types of deviations, even though he has ecstatic symptoms, it's clear that he's not a pure devotee. Okay, so we cannot just externally see, oh yes, he's crying, he's got tears flowing from his eyes, must be a great devotee. One time, one devotee was talking about Ramayana, and he was mentioning about how Dashrath was crying. And when Lord Ram was leaving, and tears were flowing. And in the audience, there was one person with tears also coming from his eyes. So when the speaker asked, after the class was over, inquired about this person, because he was thinking he's also such a great devotee. Just by hearing the Krishna Katha, he's also crying. But when he delved deeper into why he was crying, you could understand that he was crying simply because of material separation. He was identifying with a material relationship that he was separated from, and he was crying. Here, the Dashrath was crying because of spiritual relationship with Lord Ram, not a mundane relationship. So the external symptom of tearing, etc., you can get that Just like if you fear, you get, scared, your hair stand on end. So materially, you can get those symptoms. But true spiritual devotional symptoms, that comes by genuine practice of Krishna consciousness and by the symptoms that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in Nectar Devotion. But it is seen that sometimes these symptoms are willfully imitated. And for this reason, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur accuses the imitators for being stone-hearted men. They are sometimes even affected by the reflection of such transcendental symptoms. Yet, if they still do not give up the forbidden habits, then they are hopeless cases for transcendental realization. When Lord Chaitanya met Srila Ramananda Rai at Kavur on the bank of Godavari, the Lord developed all these symptoms, but because of the presence of some non-devotee Brahmanas who were attendants of the Raya, the Lord suppressed these symptoms. So sometimes they are not visible even in the body of the first-class devotee for certain circumstantial reasons. Therefore, real steady bhava is definitely displayed in the matter of cessation of material desires, shanti, utilization of every moment in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, avyartha kalatvam, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 23, 18 to 19, eagerness for glorification of the Lord constantly, nama gane sadaruchi, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, prishtistat vashati stale, complete detachment from material happiness, virakti, and pridelessness, mana sunyata. So these were the other ecstatic symptoms that Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in Nectar Devotion, quoted here also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which you cannot imitate. So these are the symptoms we can try to find in pure devotees, even though they may not exhibit the external ecstatic symptoms of bhava. Prabhupada, he would also try to inhibit and check these ecstatic symptoms. There are a few occasions where they would, overcome Prabhupada and he would become stunned. But very often Prabhupada would not show these. But if we analyze the other symptoms which are quoted here, cessation of material desires, utilization of every moment in transcendental service, eagerness for glorifying the Lord constantly, attraction for living in the land of the Lord, complete detachment from material happiness, and pridelessness. We see those qualities in Prabhupada. So, no doubt, pure devotee, Paramhamsa. One who has developed all these transcendental qualities is really possessed of the bhava stage, as distinguished from stone-hearted imitator or mundane devotee. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner. Note, perfectly offenseless manner. And is friendly to everyone. Note our attitude to other devotees, to other living entities. Friendly to everyone, can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord. So this is what we should strive. Be respectful, be kind, be compassionate to all living entities. Avoid all forms of offenses. Try to chant the holy name perfectly, attentively, seriously. And the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc., as mentioned above. The neophyte, due to their being in the lower stage of devotional service, are invariably envious. So much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulations without following the acharyas. So Prabhupada is highlighting one of the external behaviors or symptoms of envy. It's like people don't want to accept the process given by Lord Chaitanya. If you don't accept the process given by Lord Chaitanya, then that means you're envious. Because Lord Chaitanya is God himself. He's Krishna. He's the Supreme. He's the original source. If this original source is coming and giving a process, if the supreme God, the controller, the whole, is coming and giving a process, and you saying, no, I don't like that process. That's not for me. I got a better process. That means you're envious. It's very subtle, very deep, but that's the truth. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who's late now, but Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when he had many gurus before he met Srila Prabhupada. And one of the gurus that he had who taught him about Astanga Yoga, mystic perfections, kept on saying, "You're not my guru. You're not my guru. I'm not your disciple. I'm not your guru." And one day, he asked Bhakti Tirtha Swami, "Do you really want to know who your guru is?" And he asked him 3 times. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said, "Yes." He said, "Your guru is the guru of the whole world, the guru of the Hare Krishna movement." And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was thinking, what, that like those people, like bed sheets and, chanting the street, like those guru of that people? No, man. But eventually he came, he got a book, he read, coming back. And he said that one book, practically answered all the questions, and he had all the knowledge about all the books that he had on his shelf. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj makes the point that he wasn't easily convinced. So he wanted to find faults in the knowledge. So the more he read to find faults, the more he became convinced, and eventually surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very dear to Prabhupada because he was distributing so many books, libraries in Russia, behind the curtains, Iron Curtain, very dear to Srila Prabhupada. And when he got initiated by Srila Prabhupada, after some time, he came back to his guru, who was teaching him other metaphysical sciences, to ask a question. And when he asked this question to the guru chastised him heavily. The guru said, "You want me to create offenses towards your guru." And he chastised Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, says, "You go and never come back." He said, "You don't realize who your guru is. He's not just an ordinary guru. He's the guru of all gurus. In fact," he said, "when your spiritual master landed in America," this was his own words, he said, "we all the other teachers, we were told to stop teaching. Because the guru of the whole world has arrived. And his teachings should be the way for everyone." And he said, but many people did not stop the teachings because of envy. So like that, if the Lord himself is coming, Lord Chaitanya is coming to teach a science, a process, we should not be teaching anything else. People should not be teaching anything else. If they're teaching anything else, then that is simply a sign of envy. So here, the neophytes, due to their being in the lowest stage of devotional service, are invariably envious. So much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulation without following the acharyas. As such, even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. Therefore, the show of tears in the eyes, trembling, perspiration, or unconsciousness, etc. is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with a pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the path, a complete progressive march on the return path home back to Godhead will depend on the instructions or the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. And we are blessed and fortunate that we are being directed by Srila Prabhupada as a bona fide self-realized soul coming in disciplic succession, following the authentic process given by the Supreme Lord himself, with no change, no tinge of adding or subtracting of self-motivation. Therefore, the process that Prabhupada has given will have wonderful effects. Last verse, 25. Atyabideyangamano nukulam prabhashashe bhagavata pradhanam yad ahavaish vayasakir atmavidyam visaradonmi patim sadhu prishta. O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee Sukadev Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maj Parikshit upon being asked. Purport. Knowledge explained by the previous acharyas like Sukadev Goswami and followed by the next like Sutta Goswami is always powerful transcendental knowledge, and it is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Purports, the second canto, third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Pure Devotional Service, A Change in Heart. Vantarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shiva Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai, Uttaramanande Hari Hari. Please share any questions or comments or feedback anyone has from today's wonderful verses. Next week we will continue with, in fact, next week may not be, there will be no class because there's a 4-day festival celebrating the appearance of Lord Nityananda in Lens. So we'll continue the following week on chapter 4, the process of creation. So very wonderful chapter, the change of heart. This is really, as Prabhupada said, this is the essence. This is what spiritual life is all about. Really transforming, changing our hearts. And don't worry about other hearts. Start with your heart. Work on yours first. Because if you work on yours, you'll be able to more effectively help others. Just by your presence, just by your association, you'll help others transform their hearts. One soul at a time, one heart at a time. This is Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Mother Lash. Just give a minute or two. Devgi says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, kindly advise where we can find the rules and regulations, practice of deity service at home. I'm currently doing Bhoga offering Mangalarti at home. I don't have brass deities. I have a small Makanchor, Damodar, and Ram and Sita that I have purchased at the gift shop. I only buy them once a week and garland offering on auspicious days, as I'm not aware I could offer them daily. I thought deity worship at home was only to brass deities. Right, so you can, there's a book, deity worship, at home as well. So at home, it's flexible in terms of how and to what extent one can follow the rules and regulations, because according to time, place, and circumstance, you can have your own rules. So you'll still follow the details, but in terms of timing, in terms of the details of how much, how little, etc., that can vary according to the time available the circumstances, the resources available. We want to increase it as much as possible, as practical as possible. So that's the gauge. And therefore, if one is under guidance, then that person who's cultivating you and understands your circumstance, then they can obviously guide you to more and more. There's no harm in increasing the standard as long as we try to maintain it. So we should try to go for the long haul. That means maintain. Always increase if you can maintain. Okay, we don't want to increase, decrease, like a seesaw. No, increase for maintaining. Otherwise, don't increase. So if you're bathing once a week, good. If you're making garlands once a week, good. On festivals, good. Right? So in this way, that's a good practice. And if you can maintain that, then you maintain that. If you can increase it, then you increase it. So that way, that is beneficial. That is anukul, favorable according to your circumstance. And then in this way, progressively, if you find great opportunity for service, you can increase. You can obviously increase in terms of standards. So there is, guidelines. I'll try to see if I can get some of the documentation available, and then we'll provide the details. And Prabhupada said that the temples are there so that we can go to the temples, see the standards, then come home and apply the standards. So the standards that we have at the temple is really what we can incorporate at according to proper guidance and according to time, place, circumstance, according to practicality. So I hope that answered that question. Thank you very much for everyone's presence. We hope to see you next week. Please honor and celebrate the appearance of Lord Nityananda, and we will meet after that. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Go Pramanande Hari Hari Bo.